Canto 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 84, the sages' teachings at Kurukshetra, and its text number 51. Performing various kinds of Vedic sacrifice according to the proper regulations, Vasudeva worshipped the Lord of all sacrificial paraphernalia, mantras, and rituals. He executed both primary and secondary sacrifices, offering oblations to the sacred fire and carrying out other aspects of sacrificial worship. Please repeat. Performing various kinds of Vedic sacrifice according to the proper regulations. Vasudeva worshipped the Lord of all sacrificial paraphernalia, mantras, and rituals. He executed both primary and secondary sacrifices, offering oblations to the sacred fire and carrying out other aspects of sacrificial worship. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and his followers. There are numerous kinds of Vedic fire sacrifice, each of which involves several elaborate rituals. The Brahmana portion of the Vedic Shruti specifies the complete step-by-step procedure of only a few prototype sacrifices, such as the Jyotishtama and Darsha Purnamasa. These are called the Prakrita, or original yagyas. The details of other yagyas must be extrapolated from the patterns of these Prakrita injunctions, according to the strict rules of the Mimamsa Shastra. Since other yagyas are thus known by derivation from the prototype sacrifices, they are called Vaikrita, or changed. Hare Krishna. Namo Buddhaya. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Dhanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharini Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschajade Shatarine. Hare Krishna. Okay, from the purport we are to understand that there are a lot of elaborate and detailed and sophisticated approaches when it comes to yagyas. And we are not privy, or let's say, we don't know them very well. And it is not a thing that's actually highlighted in the Kali Yuga. But Srila Prabhupada did bring to us this fire yagya we call Havan, or Agnihotra. In the south they call it, what do they call it? I'm trying to think right now. But in any case, we do have that. Prabhupada introduced it for initiations. He had going on the fire yagyas, and also, you know, for marriages. He held the marriages and programs like that. There's a lot of smoke. That's a main feature of the sacrifice. Lots of smoke, lots of color. Everybody's dressed nice. There's mantras. Brahmins are chanting mantras. Something like that. It looks like you're in another era when you go through one of these. It is another yuga practically. What was the yuga where they emphasized sacrifices? Anybody? Treta Yuga?
Dwapara Yuga.
Okay.
Because Treta was deity worship.
Anybody want to clarify that? So in the first yuga, that is Satya Yuga, we did what? Meditations. Right? Next one, Treta Yuga. What was it? Sacrifices. And then the third yuga, Dwapara Yuga. What did we have? Definitely they didn't have cars, sports cars. What was it in Dwapara Yuga? Krishna's time.
Temple worship.
Yeah, temple worship. Mm-hmm. And then now we have, in Kali Yuga, we make some noise, we make some sound. Harinam, Sankirtan, Yagya, it is a kind of a sacrifice. when you use the word sacrifice, it conjures up different images in people. Some people think sacrifices like the ones they had in South America. You know, they let the victim roll, and it was a great privilege to be offering your body to the gods. Your body would also be tumbling down the stairs. That they are definitely, it's a kind of religious practice that's not in the mode of goodness necessarily, but people did these things. Wow. And Prabhupada also talks about human sacrifices in remote places and villages. It had been going on. It's very rare now. And the British abolished any of those kind of things, like sati rites as well, which is another kind of fire ceremony. A bride runs into the fire when her husband dies, in his fire. You know, it's rare to do that. In the story of Jada Bharat, some fellows came around, some tribal folks came around. They were looking for a specimen to be offered to the goddess Durga. And they saw, here's a big strong guy, he's a good specimen. Let's use him, let's grab him. And he was spending time in the field supervising that animals wouldn't come and ruin a farmer's fields, like boars, wild boars, they'll turn up the earth and whatever rodents and things like that. He tried to keep, creatures around that would mess up the farmers. He was employed that way. And so while in the course of, watching and doing security, these guys felt, let's get this guy. He's a good one. He's a big one. Wow, what a whopper. And they took him, and the story goes that because he was such a pure, intent person, he was a beautiful devotee of the Lord, Durga decided to, or goddess Kali, she decided, I'm not going to, accept this man, because goddess Kali is known to take some body parts. Goats are common, in especially Kolkata, in Kaligat it's called. Goats are offered in sacrifice to goddess Kali. It's not a sacrifice in the mode of goodness for sure, but it is somewhat Vedic. Some people are a little bit more in Tamagun, they offer goats in sacrifice. And they say the Sanskrit mantra, you me, which means you me. I'm taking your life, and you get a chance to take my life in the future. At least they're doing some kind of sacrifice, right? So anyways, what happened was when his body, his dehi, was being offered to the goddess, she couldn't tolerate what these guys were doing to him. So I'm not going to take this man. I'm going to take down these other guys. So with machetes, with swords, actually, she came and just it was like a backlash for them. They had no idea. She came and she butchered them all, and protected him. And we did this play once, and the scene was really compelling. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. The goddess came out, and we had all this sort of tribal music, and it was really, it's great, very riveting. I still remember Bir Krishna Swami said, Maharaj, you should just don't do any administration, just do these plays, work with these young people. He loved it. I gave a hug. So the yajnas went on of all sorts and kinds in previous ages and for different purposes. Horses were offered in sacrifice, cows were offered in sacrifice. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains what actually happens in the process. If a horse is forced into a fire, he comes out with a rejuvenated body. An old horse is brought in, and then he comes out, he's like reincarnated on the spot. Out mystically comes a young stallion, And so that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arguments with the Chandkazi, who was a Muslim ruler. The Muslim ruler said, you have to sacrifice. So they had a nice dialogue, Chaitanya and the Chandkazi. And it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who, took a strong stand against cow killing and so on like that. You have that, but we don't do this, it's a mode of ignorance. And then it was the Jankazi, the Muslim leader, who knew something. He was kind of a scholar, he studied different religious practices. And he said, yeah, but you Hindus, he said, you Hindus, you do offer a horse in sacrifice and a cow. You have them, it's part of your Vedas, And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clarified, yes, but we have to understand what happens in the process. The animals' lives are not given up, they come out in a rejuvenated way with a new body. And so anyways, we can talk about sacrifices until you're blue in the face. We have a sacrifice where we offer vegetarian food. Well, our boga is sattvic, it should be not modified genetically. And sometimes I think when we offer our tomatoes, I think, oh, there's probably like pig cells in the tomato peel on the skin on the outside to make it more, let's say, durable. And so it'll last longer, has longer shelf life, and more money can be made. That's always the bottom line for so many things. So we don't get the pure stuff much anymore because it's Kali Yuga, but we can always try for the pure stuff. Like when you meet now, they say, oh, this world's very different, it's quite screwed up, it's happening with all the marches and the protests and the looting. We have to agree with it. Yeah, it's a messy, messy situation. It's not very good. And we try to insert in this dark age Vedic concepts, such as chanting of Hare Krishna. That's the easiest thing to do. But some of these yajnas are difficult. It's even hard to offer food sometimes because the milk is not a hingsa. And if they add sugar in some, or perhaps like the birthday cake of yesterday, they always have to bring up that thing about the birthday cake. I have to laugh at it for a few days. And, white sugar and stuff like that. It's the worst junk food on the planet. But we offered it, when Prabhupada was with us, it wasn't probably as bad as it is now. But he would say, and there's stories about, they'll take a puri that was deep fried in like ghee at night, and then they'll take that puri and take a cup of sugar, like not a cup of sugar, but dip it into sugar and then pop it and eat it. Maybe that wasn't the best for one's health, but that was Prabhupada. And, some people say he wasn't the best patient, but that was Prabhupada. One time he had a conversation with Garga Muni. He said, if you can't enjoy life with good prasadam, then there's not much point. Yeah. So, but Prabhupada brought all these things to us, how to offer our food, and it's simple but done with love. Prabhupada was on a train with a group of devotees in India, and one of the Matajis decided it was a long train ride. We'll make an offering. And so she decided to put a big altar, all this elaborate stuff and decor and all that. Prabhupada's looking at us. You don't need to do all that to offer something on this body. He said different things. One time he even said, with fruit, you don't have to offer. What Krishna accepts is basically cooked things, cooked items. So he said when he says these kind of things which appear to be contradictory, the message for us is that, okay, he was a little bit flexible, and we should not be one-track mind on these things. Here's another good story for everybody. We all know that we're not supposed to eat onions and garlic and things like that. Yet Prabhupada went to the home with a group of devotees in India to a lady who was a potential life member. And in one of the sabjis was onions. And so the prasad was given out to everybody, and one of the devotees detected, there's onions in here. And he said, onions. He didn't want to offend the woman. And Prabhupada gave a little kick, eat it. Because what was important to him was this lady, she had offered it with love and devotion, and he didn't think it was so bad, you know, that if we were going to warm this nice lady up into Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, Prabhupada was a little flexible, and he was also very practical and looked at time, place, and circumstance. He was very pragmatic. We should never forget that. And the general rule is to, you know, chant Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna. Somebody can criticize, like, when I fly, I go to the airports, right, to get there, to fly. And if you're waiting for a few hours, you have to go to the washroom. You have to take everything with you. You have to take your beads with you to the washroom. You're not going to hang out somewhere else. There's going to be an alarm. People are going to say, there's a bomb in there. You know? So you have to take your beads in the washroom with you. One other person was also told, one devotee was squealing on another, to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, he put tilak on in the washroom. And Prabhupada said, he's putting on tilak. So, in other words, what we're saying here is that the essentials must be there, the foundational elements must be there. Other details can be important. Pay attention to details means to be attentive to chanting, attentive to all that we do. But on some of those details, because of the circumstances, it may not be possible. There's so many interesting stories. There was a time when Prabhupada was on the plane, and you know, the flight attendants go around with water, and people take, right? And then someone offered, the devotees weren't watching so much, someone had offered Prabhupada some like a liquor, a thing like that. And Prabhupada took it to be water, and he just didn't say anything. And that news traveled around real fast. Prabhupada, you know, very innocently it happened. And so these are fun things to take in. Our purpose, is to keep to simplicity, but to have some essentials, such as our focus is on Krishna, our focus is on Chaitanya and Guru, and you do it all with love. Patram pushpam palam duyam yome bhakta prayachati tataham bhakti uparitam ashnami prayatat manaha, from chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita. Would you like to get it for us? You probably know this one. 926. An essential factors there. 25 and 26, chapter 9. Middle, right smack in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita. Some essential truths are given there. Do you want to tell us the translation?
926?
Mm-hmm.
It's Patram Pushpam Phalam.
Yeah, please say the English and say it loud so everybody can hear.
If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it.
Yeah, that is a verse that is the epitome of simplicity. And we're talking about like very basic kind of food commodities. Flower, fruit. Prabhupada translates it as, no, fruit is not a problem with that. Water's not a problem. Leaves, of course, yeah, green things we should be taking. And grains, flour, fruit, and water. And I will accept. So, anad bhavanti bhutani parajanyadana sambhava. Anad means grains. So, in this part of the world, we eat grains. In the Americas, the staple grain was, anybody know?
Corn?
It was corn, yeah. Corn grew here in this part of the world. And they could actually store it, our indigenous people could, hang it, and they could use it. They used corn and so many things. They pound it, grind it, so they get some kind of flour, and they used it a lot. You know. And of course, grains were not, they were brought here, like wheat was brought here, to my knowledge, but the staple diet was corn. And other places like Africa, same thing. And so it's rice, or it's wheat, or similar types of grains, or it's corn. And those are some of the staples throughout the world. So anad bhavanti bhutani parakinyada samava. So everyone subsists on these food grains, okay? And you can even say people who eat animals. Most of those animals are dependent on grains and leafy things. So essentially everybody's supposed to be a vegetarian. And these things come about, the anna comes about because of the sacrifices that are executed. And from sacrifice comes rain. And then they nourish the grain. So in this way we're eating. When we do an annaprasana, which means when a child, after 6 months, the baby is getting its first grains. You know, it's been drinking milk and now it's taking grains for the first time. It's like a bit samskar in our tradition. And you know, usually the babies are not into it too much. You put a spoon and I go like this, with the spoon, and you, if they open up, then you throw it inside. Sometimes mom and dad have to hold the child before the priest puts it in. And anyways, you might have to put it to the lips and it stays. They don't want to open the mouth. And then it just kind of dribbles. But at least something has got in there. Something has got. They've had their anna. Sacraments are important, and they are like sacrifices. Like I've done a lot of haircutting ceremonies myself. What did we call them now? Forgetting. When a child is 1 year old, often more for the boys, they get them to shave their head. So I've had to deal with squealy, cranky babies over the time. And this way they're supposed to, it indicates starting a new life. Starting a new, coming out of babyhood, entering into childhood. Stepping up, you know. It's a rite of passage. Yeah. Vedic sense, in Vedic sense. One day I was walking on Yonge Street, and I was behind a couple. They were a few yards ahead of me, and it was a Southeast Asian couple. You don't usually see them holding hands, but this couple was. And we went a few blocks. We were keeping the same pace. And then the guy, he you know, kind of smiled at me once in a while, noticed I was there. We come to a street corner, you have to stop. Of course, especially if there's lights, stop. And then after a while, he just turned around and said, I don't know if you remember me. I said, I don't think I remember you, but yeah, you cut my hair when I was 1 year old. I said, well, maybe I did. Do you remember it? I asked him, because you're only 1 year old. And he said, no, my mother showed me the pictures. You're the guy that shaved my head. So I said, thank you for doing that, he said. So this is another one of those rituals, sanskars, which would indicate that somebody is moving on in a progressive stage. A lot of people, especially people from India, these things are very important, the rituals. House blessings. Now they bring their car. We take the car for a spin 3 times around the block. Take a turn right turn here, right turn on the next one, right turn, right turn. That's one circumambulation around the deities. And then 2 more times. We do it like that. One time again, I was actually in New Jersey, where we had the temple there on the hill. Potomac, I think? No. Tawaka. Yeah, Tawaka. And this young boy came up, his father gave him a gift. It was a Lexus, black Lexus. And what was it for? So that it could circumambulate around the temple, which you could do there. This road that goes up. And then we've done that before. We put a garland on the windshield. Sometimes they put some tilak mark on it. And you might crack a coconut in front. They take it very seriously because they're saying, I want my, my vehicle or my house, I want to be blessed. Blessed by the best. Meaning the local priest or pujari. So, these rituals are important. They're like, what shall I say? They're milestones in people's lives. In a culture where you don't have those kind of rites of passage, that you say, well, what do you have? Are you really marching? Are you progressing? What steps are you taking? I'm not taking any steps. I'm just smoking, having a good time. So it was, what's his name? Suzuki, David Suzuki. He said he was actually criticizing our modern day culture because there's no rites of passage. In the Jewish tradition, there's their bar mitzvah, where it indicates a boy's now becoming a man. And it's all basically it's a formality, but for those who take it to heart, it means more than that. It means much more. And so it just means that you're progressing, you're taking note, you're making a list. I've passed these tests. And what's the goal in the end? Oh, to be God conscious. So what if you don't have anything in your culture, You're wandering quite aimlessly, isn't it? What's really important, I just eat and I die. Is that all? You're born, I die. I have a little fun in the middle, and that's it. So we have procedures, and some of those procedures are sacrifices. The best procedure for this day and age is chanting Hare Krishna. That is for everybody. Now we're seeing that Vasudeva, because he was from a higher Varna, he took some form of diksha, and they took it seriously. He was dressed in deer skin, but all his wives were there, all dolled up, all decked up to look nice, because they take it seriously, like a wedding. And the clothes are clean, they're pressed, they're looking good, and just looking good. I remember some years ago there was about the Ramayan series, right? Went on TV for so long. So I was looking at one of their promotional things, and they have all these backdrops, it's, fake this and that. It's all facade, made of cheap like foam, but looks good from a distance. And then I noticed something on one of their little tables. They had a cloth, and it had creases in it. Right? Creases so it went for when it's folded, and so they spread it out and had square folds in it. So that's a flaw. That's an absolute flaw. So paying attention to details. It's very important that we do that. And when it comes to chanting Hare Krishna, which is the ultimate thing for us in this day and age, we chant as distinctly and as attentively as possible. Not easy to do, but we do it. Vasudeva is accepting initiation, and mantras are emanating from the mouths of the Brahmins, and then there's items that are tossed into the fire, like what we do. We have barley and ghee, and we have spices that are tossed in, and ghee, and wood, and then bananas at the end. You've all seen it. It's quite wonderful. Yeah, it's all done like that. So we don't have to worry about if anybody criticizes, oh, you can't sacrifice humans, oh, how could you dare do that, or things like that. We don't do those things. Sacrifice as presented in the Kali Yuga simply means that you we chant Krishna's name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And it must be done, it must be executed with some attention and in a humble state of mind. You have to really put your heart to it. And also Prabhupada encouraged the devotees to chant so that we can, visibly, so we can see each other doing the japa. Otherwise, I'm wondering if some of you are chanting. I don't see you open your lips. No, I never see visually you're chanting. So sorry to put a little guilt trip on you, but we have standards in Prabhupada's mission. Just simply a reminder. And to pay attention to the attendance at the programs. And that's all very, very important. To be an example and also to, for self-improvement. Who doesn't want to go for a self-improvement type of procedures? So that's our sacrifice. A lot of people who came to the movement in the early days, they did sacrifice. A young guy comes, with hair, and he's got a guitar, and he has to give that up. Or he chooses to. If he does it on his own, that's better. And that is his last most important attachment. Sanatana Goswami had a really nice chatter, and he came to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave, kind of some gestures, and it was that fancy thing, And then Sanatana Goswami picked up on it. So, okay, so we went for bathing in this sacred river, and there was another older Brahmin there. He put his chatter down there, and he saw the chatter of the Brahmin a little bit torn, looking a little bit dicey. And then they were in the water together. By the way, do you mind, Prabhuji, if we could just exchange chatters? Is that okay? And the older man was saying, are you okay? Because this is a fancy chatter. And I'm serious. I mean it. So, okay, Brahman, the older Brahman was agreed to it, or sadhu. And then Sanatana Goswami went back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and brought his new, or rather an old, chatter, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was happy. Yeah, all right. This is what we need, detachment from the world, from worldly things. So that is a big sacrifice for a lot of people, just to give up whatever they have. Well, when one devotee donated for all the window pieces, everything here was his life's earnings he gave to have those windows installed. And what was here prior was this real thin stuff, Water could come in. Definitely the heat was leaking out. And because it was not very thick pane, the cool air came in the wintertime. So somebody came and they gave their all to Krishna, to the movement. Okay, so what time is it right now, anybody? 8:12. I will end it there because I have to do another Zoom at 9 o'clock. It's going to go with Chaitanya Charan and go all over the world with it. So if I could see you a little bit before that, that would be nice. Okay, any quick questions or comments?